Hey, I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. And this podcast is different from everything else out there. I bring together new and aspiring investors on each and every episode and let the aspiring investors ask the questions that they need answered. And if you're an aspiring investor yourself, you probably have the same questions. So before you get to this episode that we have prepared for you, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that little notification bell to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show.
What advice would you give an aspiring investor that's 6 to 12 months behind you?
Just realize that if you're trying to be the master of all those roles or the jack of all trades, you're probably not going to gain momentum in any of the roles. I feel deep down inside that everyone has a hunch or maybe a gut feeling of maybe some advantage that they have or some skill set that they have from a previous job or some network that they had before they came into the space that may translate into at least one role on a multifamily team. So I say you have to really own that role and kind of just step up and make that your superpower. Even if you've never done it before, you're going to be able to more clearly put the puzzle pieces together if you just market yourself as one role.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. Very excited for today's show. It's one of our first deal series episodes, and we have Ryan Johnson with us, who recently closed on a 138-unit apartment complex in the Austin, Texas area. So that said, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian. It's an honor to be here. Before we get started, I want to congratulate you on your retirement from the Marine Corps and thank you for your service. I've been listening to your podcast a while and saw how you made it happen and working in the Pentagon at the same time. So I give you mad props, man. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. It's 20 years is a long time. Is all I got to say. I think I enjoyed the first 18 and a half years of it, but Pentagon is a fun place to have worked is what I'll say about that, but I appreciate it. And I'll also say it was great to meet you in person a couple months ago. We met in Orlando at Jake and Gino's shindig. So that was pretty cool too.
Yeah. Pleasure to meet you as well.
All right. So that said, Ryan, why don't you do us a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you did prior to apartment investing and how you got into apartment investing.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Louisiana, but I've called Houston my home for over 20 years now. And for my W-2 job, I'm what you call a certified registered nurse anesthetist. And in that role, I administer anesthetics to patients undergoing various surgical procedures and, administer epidural and spinal anesthetics to mothers having babies. I've been in that role full time for 14 years now. If you include the 3 years of training, 17 years in the anesthesia space and 4 years prior to that to prepare myself to get into that grad school. So over 20 years in the healthcare space. So as far as how I got into real estate and just multifamily in general, and I started investing in smaller deals in 2018, 19, and 2020. I started LPing in deals and joined a mentorship in 2021.
Okay. So when you say smaller deals in 2018, what size of deals were you in?
I was more on the single family side space. I actually started doing land flips. I would buy land in appreciating areas in Houston, hold them for a little while. When the value would go up, I would flip it. And, I met a partner through Bigger Pockets in 2019. And, we started doing some single family stuff together, some flips, and ultimately we're still partners. I'm doing some small multifamily development with him and I continue to do that to this day.
All right, nice. So let's talk about that multifamily development. I mean, you're in the Houston area. Are you also doing the development in the Houston area? And what's all involved with that?
Yes, so I kind of noticed, if you're searching for like duplexes or triplexes or fourplexes, there's not a lot of new product in the market. And I was working with a partner that was a rehabber and a flipper that wanted to be a builder. And at some point, we were doing some really big flips together, and he wanted to start building spec houses, and I just wanted to keep doing deals. So we did some spec flips together. and I wanted units and he wanted to build units. So we kind of just developed a partnership where he started building the units. And the house hackers really ran up the small multifamily market in Houston, but really everywhere, because they can overpay for a duplex and it makes complete financial sense for them numbers wise. So I realized that I could build them for less than the retail value with quite a bit of equity baked in, and refi out and basically use the BRRRR strategy on a new construction duplex.
Okay, nice. Yeah, and the house hacking thing, I think most people will understand that, but since you can get a primary mortgage loan on, a duplex, triplex, or a quad, you can get in there for a relatively low amount of capital and rent the other units out, and for in a lot of areas live almost rent free. So what you're saying is, in the Houston area, the people who are doing that, because of the extra income, because of the fact that they can make a lot of money and get in with almost no money down, that particular market's getting bid up quite a bit.
Yeah, quite a bit for a new construction duplex product. There's not a lot of product out there, and when they hit the market, and they're pending in a couple of days. So I noticed the niche and the need, and we're like, okay, I can fill that need and just build my own deals.
Yeah. And so by building your own deals, and I'm basically repeating what you said, by building your own deals, you're getting in at a lower cost basis. Your overall price is lower, and therefore the profitability is quite high. And then if you ever, you're BRRRRing. So if you ever want to sell it, since that there's a demand for that market, you're in a pretty good position trying to sell too.
Yeah, no, I have no, if I have a unit down, I have no hesitancy in selling it, and it'll probably sell in 1 week.
Nice. Well, that sounds like a great business plan. What got you shifting from the small multifamilies, single family, small multifamily development into the larger, multifamily, like the GP spot you have in this 138 unit, for example?
Yeah, so I realized in 2020 that I was building the smaller stuff and getting great returns from it, but I realized all the content that I was consuming was just larger multifamily assets, and maybe it was a mindset thing that I needed to wait to get in, to kind of get a system down and to have so many single family doors before I made the jump. So, I started, I'm like, I'm going to LP in a deal in Houston. And I met some great operators in Houston, and I LP'd in a deal at the end of 2020, just to kind of understand the process a little bit more. And I really liked it. And, the deal to this day has performed excellent. I got a distribution today, actually. And, nice. I said, okay, like if I'm gonna try to buy apartment complexes, then I want to be surrounded by people that are trying to do the same thing. So I went ahead and in February of this year, I went ahead and joined a paid mentorship program.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And I make it no secret, I went through paid mentorship as well. I would say that it's important to have a mentor, whether you get it through bootstrapping and trying to add value, or you pay to play, which is also a way to add value. I think mentorship is important. So just real quick, what do you think the mentorship has done for you, or how has it helped you?
It's nice to have, not only a couple of coaches to bounce ideas off of, but just really it's really a community. It's not just a multifamily mentorship program. It's really a whole community of just like-minded individuals that are kind of going through the same challenges and struggles on trying to get their businesses going. And, it's nice to just be able to throw a question on the Facebook page and have 50 people answer it within 20 minutes. So that is nice. And just the connections. You're paying for the education and the coaching, but you're also paying for the network and the Rolodex, to be able to throw a question and be able to be connected with someone anywhere in the US, maybe in that specific market, that can help you with a problem or help you solve a problem is very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And also something that I've talked about a lot is, I met my partners through the network that came along with one of these paid programs, so you get information, you get your questions answered. There's a huge pool of people, if you're in the, I would say you should look for mentorship programs that have large pools as well, but there's a nice pool of prospective partners there if you're coming in without a partner too. So I think a lot of goodness is in the mentorship program. So that said, what's your reason for doing this? Your motivations? What's what I like to call your big burning why?
I heard you on a podcast recently and you talked about the evolution of your why. And I can
Mhm.
see my why, starting to evolve. But right now, I think my primary why is, anesthesia is a great job. And, I can
Mhm.
move anywhere in the country and definitely make a great living and live a comfortable lifestyle. But ultimately, I found that the field lacked just maybe the professional growth that I was searching for.
Mhm.
And the financial growth as well. I mean, you can work, you can make great money, but that's going to require more time, like more nights, more weekends, more call,
Mhm.
more time at the hospital. And, ultimately, I just didn't think the trade-off was that great for me. And I kind of went through a little bit of a burnout phase in healthcare. It's funny that, I'm sitting here talking to
Yeah.
a tired Marine, and healthcare, the healthcare venue is kind of compared to a war zone sometime, right? Like in the operating room when things are going bad, especially with COVID,
Yeah.
right? It's a war
It's
zone
high
in the ICU.
stress. Yes,
High
it's a
stress.
very
Yeah.
high stress. You have
Yeah.
to act now environment. I understand that. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you're right as far as that goes.
Yeah. Quick decisions. And, I've been in healthcare for 20 years and I'm like, maybe I'm looking for something a little bit new. So that's my big burning why is I only want to do anesthesia when I want it and if I want to.
Yeah. Yeah. And that resonates with me a lot. I mean, fortunately out of my 20 years in the Marine Corps, it wasn't all, in a combat, high stress environment, but yeah, I understand that, when you're in that situation where you have to make judgment calls immediately, there's a lot of stress with it, a lot of pressure to make the right decision because, and the other thing that's common between our fields is when you're making decisions like that, lives depend on it.
Yeah.
So
100%.
you make the right decision and everybody's happy. You make the wrong decision and
Yeah. You
bad
get
things
sued.
happen. So
Yeah.
well, fortunately for us, we don't get sued, but
Yeah.
it's just the cost of I'm not going to call it the cost of doing business, but it's one of the realities you have to face. So
Yeah, for sure.
So that said, let's shift gears and start talking about this property that you tackled. And incidentally, for those who are listening, we talked to his partner a couple of months ago, about a month ago on the podcast. Brian Pawnell. So he's going to talk about the same property, but we're going to talk about this from a different point of view because you guys both had completely different roles in the closing itself. So that said, let's give us a little brief overview of the property itself.
Yeah, so the property itself is 138 units. It's just north of downtown Austin. It's in a submarket called the Mueller submarket, and that historically that was somewhat of a neglected submarket, but with Austin's exponential growth over the last decade, it's a really booming area. Within that submarket, they have the largest public-private partnership between the city of Austin and a large development company that is developing the old Mueller Airport, and they're dumping like billions and billions of dollars into that. So this asset is a C-class asset, two-phase build. Part of it was built in '69, and part of it was built in '84. And it was a unique deal in the fact that it had 9 units down from a fire, and the seller was underinsured. And so he wasn't able to get insurance money to get these 9 units up.
Ooh, yes. Now, incidentally, the 9 units that were down, were they part of the first phase build, the '60s vintage, or were they part of the I think the '80s vintage?
Yeah, no, they were part of the '80s vintage.
Okay.
Yeah. And they were actually some of the top units on the asset, pool, townhouse style at the pool, some of the more expensive, the higher rent units for sure.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, if I were a betting man, I would have bet there was the '60s units that went down just because, the wiring, it was completely different standard in the '60s.
A fireworks accident.
Oh, a fireworks accident. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you live in one of those municipalities where they say no fireworks on the 4th of July or whatever, that's why, but fireworks accident. Got it. But all right, so let's talk a little bit about the partnership. Tell me who else was involved, and I think more importantly, how you met the partners and how you became involved in this.
Yeah, so the lead sponsor is out of Houston, and I reached out to him on Facebook actually, and I realized that okay, I want to connect with all the players in Houston when I decided to go the multifamily route. So that's what I did. I see these people at meetups, so I reached out to him on Facebook. We scheduled a call. we chatted, we hit it off really well. And, we just kind of kept in touch and just left it at that. And I told them maybe the type of value that I thought that I could eventually bring to his team. And we just kind of left it at that. And, a few months later, I offered to buy him lunch, and we had lunch together, and I just developed a relationship with him basically. And, a couple of months later, I went to dinner with him and Brian, and they actually were, talking about this deal. And I think they had submitted some LOIs and were in negotiations with the seller. And as they were negotiating the PSA, they felt that they were going to get the deal. And, they both called me up and they were like, "Hey man, we'd love to have you on board, or, why don't you take a shot?" So I decided to come on.
All right, awesome. Now, in this relationship development phase, I mean, you reached out to him, you started developing a relationship. What would you say would be the reason why they said, "Hey, Ryan, we want you on board"? I mean, when you talk to them, what types of things how did you portray yourself, and what do you think led to them inviting you into the deal?
I kind of pitched myself as like, "Hey, I'm all in with you guys." And, I wanted to come in as a capital raiser, and that's kind of what I led with. That's the value that I can bring to your team. I'm looking to get experience in doing larger deals. I'm already doing smaller deals myself. And I want to, partner up with experienced people. And the lead sponsor has done over 1,000 units as a lead sponsor. And, in this industry, you need a track record. And if you start to build that track, you can build a track record, I think, two ways: organically, where maybe you start on some smaller deals and you kind of keep building it organically with smaller deals and get bigger and bigger and bigger. Or you can work with people that are already a little bit more established and gain your track record like that. And I kind of chose the latter.
Okay. So you branded yourself as a capital raiser, saying, "Hey guys, I would be good at capital raising." And I think your profession probably helps quite a bit. My understanding is it's the highest paid nursing profession, and the average salary rivals that of most doctors. So I would assume that played a little part in it.
Oh yeah, correct. I mean, I see people, out doing marketing and whatnot, and they're struggling to reach accredited investors. And for me, I realize that I'm in a unique position, is that my investor avatar is myself, right? Because if I'm out here looking for yield and diversification from the stock market, why wouldn't anyone in my situation also be looking at it? And so I'm direct to 503c investor pretty much all day, every day for 20 years. So that's kind of why I positioned myself as a capital raiser coming in.
Yeah, and I think your chosen profession uniquely qualifies you for what you're doing, because exactly that, you already have a bunch of accredited investors in your hip pocket, and it's just a matter of being able to reach your target investor, which is yourself. I mean, your avatar is yourself. Right. And I think that's a smart way of doing things. If you're able, I mean, if you're in a low paying profession and your avatar, you're not able to invest in stuff, may not be the best way to go. But in your position, I think that's the smart move. So, let's talk about the capital raise itself. Tell us how that went overall, and then after that we'll dive into some specifics.
Yeah. So the total capital raise was about $5.6 million. We were able to raise it in about 3 weeks. I realized that Austin is the sexy market right now, right? And it's a booming market. And being that most of the lead sponsors were from Texas, and that we were selling an Austin deal, it really wasn't a hard sell with most of the Texas investors. People, if you're going to invest $50,000 or $100,000 in a syndication and you're from Texas, it may as well be in Austin. Austin's on fire. You like the sponsorship team, you like the deal. It wasn't a tough sell. For me, myself overall, I had initially pledged to raise $500,000, and I kind of took it as like, okay, I'm going to under promise and work like hell to over deliver. And making that commitment to these guys, it really kind of put me in warp speed on doing things that I probably should have done for the 3 to 4 months before while I was preparing. And I kind of just, once you make that decision, you just kind of go for it. That's kind of what I did.
I mean, you went all in, and you definitely over delivered. So, as far as that goes, what steps did you take to start reaching out to your investor base?
So, I had kind of been prepping myself mentally for it. And I talk, if anyone anyone can agree, if you work in the operating room with me, we're going to be talking about real estate at some point during the procedure or after the procedure or in the lunchroom or pretty much everywhere around the hospital. So that's kind of I've kind of changed my identity within at least the local Houston healthcare community as like, I'm the anesthesia real estate guy.
Yeah.
And so that identity change happened over the last couple of years through social media. And what I did was I challenge everyone, because I see everyone, whether they're trying to start a podcast or they're trying to, really market themselves. I'm like, look, I talk to people every day that want to become capital raisers. And I'm like, how many people do you have on your phone and how many people are you connected with on social media? I guarantee you it's 2,000 people. So there's your 2,000 first people that you reach out to. So I kind of did it organically. I did it on my phone. I did develop a CRM and I put out a newsletter, and that definitely was instrumental for me. So I reached out and I said, hey, guys, I've been investing in real estate for 2 years. I'm looking at, some deals in Austin. We're getting a deal under contract. I'd love to send you my newsletter. Most of the people on Facebook and your phone Rolodex are going to say, yeah, sure, send it to me. And that's kind of what I did. And I ended up with maybe 300 and 350 investors from that. And it just kind of went from there. I raised it pretty much from there.
Yeah. I think you said something absolutely crucial at the beginning is you've been talking about real estate for a long time, and I think how other people look at you and what other people think of you is really important in the capital raising business. I mean, you're not just the nurse anesthetist, you're also the nurse anesthetist who is very much involved into real estate. If you work on your identity, and whether you were doing that intentionally or not at first, if you have the identity of being a real estate investor, it's a lot easier to actually raise money, and that was one of the things I found out the hard way, because everybody knew me as Brian the Marine, and when I started trying to raise money for my first investment, a lot of the questions I got was, can you do that while you're on active duty? Or I thought you were a Marine, not a real estate guy, So I think you hit something. I wish I would have heard you say that, 2 or 3 years ago, because I would have worked actually 3 or 4 years ago. I would have worked a lot harder on changing, how people perceive me. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's key. I mean, if you lead with that first, and that's how I led. It helped me to change my identity, but it changes your identity and to others as well. And I pretty much told everyone, hey, like, I'm going to get out of my W-2 job through real estate. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm doing these smaller deals right now, but eventually I'm going to do bigger deals. And if you'd like the opportunity to see some of them. So I was kind of, in a sense, prepping people for 2 years before my first raise.
Yeah. Nice. Now, do you have a date on the calendar for when you want to completely exit your W-2?
No, I don't have a date, but I actually, last month, I told my boss that in 2022 that I'm going to go part-time. So it's still kind of in negotiation on how much I'm going to go part-time and when that's going to happen. But I went ahead and I just told him. And so that's in the works. I think probably by the end of Q1, I'll at least go like 75 to 50%.
And it's nice that you have that option. If I went in the military, tell my boss I was going part-time, that wouldn't go over well, but I like that idea. You have the flexibility to go part-time, and you can kind of phase, one stream of income out and another stream of income in, and be able to, manage both pretty well. So anyway, good luck on that one. So sometime in 2022, you're going to be part-time CRNA. I get those mixed up all the time. So.
No, yeah, you're correct.
All right. Well, cool. So let's talk a little bit more about this particular deal. So we talked about the raising capital piece. Talked about getting the team together. Let's talk about the closing a little bit. Was there any big hitches that came along, prior to close?
We did have a small hitch, and everyone was sweating a little bit. There was a lot of agreements between us and the seller on the fire building, because we did get somewhat of a credit for the fire building. But when the lender came in on the back end, after we chose the lender through the broker, they wanted to change some of the language in the PSA, and maybe the seller didn't really love the language that they wanted to change. So there was kind of some back and forth with our lead sponsor and our attorney, and the lender's attorney and the seller's attorney. But ultimately, after we changed the language to where everyone was happy with it, and we got the deal closed.
All right, nice. So you guys close in October, and it is currently December. I mean, this episode will air sometime in January, but how has it gone since you guys have closed? And also tell us how you've been involved since it's closed.
Yeah, so I mean, the closing went great. Week 1 and 2, the seller was vertically integrated, so it was a changeover in property management companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we picked a great property management company that's headquartered out of Austin that took over, and so far they've gone great. So we kind of went through the initial challenges of getting everyone on the new payment system and on the new portals, and answering a lot of questions, and definitely handling a lot of deferred maintenance, and just cleaning up the apartment complex, and just telling everyone, okay, there's a new sheriff in town, and we're going to keep this thing way cleaner. We're going to address all your needs and your units and whatnot. So that's been going well. On renewals, we're hitting some of our year 2 pro forma rents on renewals, just because it was under market rent, and we're hitting market rent just on straight renewals. So that's been very positive,
nice.
A very positive sign for us. As far as how I'm involved, I've been on the asset management call, so I'm gaining valuable experience, on the asset management team. And, with my small multifamily development background, I'm integrally involved in getting these 9 units back up. I'm kind of I personally, volunteered my time to play a big role in that project. And so that's been really good. And we're hope to choose the GC for the job by the end of the month.
All right. Nice. And it's certainly nice when your previous investing experience, with a small single family and multifamily translate well. And I think this is one of the cases where it does. Personally, I owned a handful of single family that I purchased to live in and then turned into rentals. But that didn't really translate, but your development experience included construction management, handling general contractors and whatnot. And it seems like that suited you very well to take this particular job on as part of the GP now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, as soon as you get on a team, you have to try to add value in whatever way is possible. And that's my goal with this team is, hey, this is my first opportunity. So, I raised the capital and I over delivered there, but, I want to be as involved as a deal as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Give them a good reason to bring you back onto the team again, right?
I mean, they say, you should vet your partners because, you're maybe in a 3 to 5 year relationships with some partners on a deal. But, I would like to do deals with groups of people for way more years than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you were one that came to Four Oaks and we said, hey, can you raise 500 and you brought in 1.4, we'd be happy to work with you again. I mean, and if you added extra value by taking a piece of the construction management on, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So lot of keys there for people trying to get into the business. I think the way you did it is one of the best ways. I mean, best depends on where you're sitting and how you see things, but you latched on to a group that has, I think you said 1,000+ units. So they brought the experience and you hustled. You did a lot of hustling. I mean, there's a lot of preparation before. You did a lot of preparation in giving yourself that real estate investor identity. Then you started building relationships with potential partners. You finally got into the deal, you hustled and you delivered. I think if I were to, write a book on the recipe to success in multifamily, that would be one of the chapters right there. So I think it's a textbook example. So, hats off to you.
Appreciate it, man.
Literally. So, and if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to this, I literally just took my hat off. So, yeah, right. So a couple questions as we close up. What's next for you?
So yeah, I'm gonna be very involved in this Austin project, and we're gonna make this project a success. And I'm currently looking at more assets in the Texas market with the same Austin team. I really worked well with those guys, and we share the same values. Overall we get along really well, so I could definitely see myself doing with deals with those individuals. I'm working with some younger underwriters and deal finders as well within my mentorship program, looking at like some a little bit smaller assets, but some maybe medium-sized assets in the Houston and the Dallas market. So we'll see where that goes. And For me, I'm just trying to, once you get a little momentum, like momentum is everything in this industry. So once you get a little momentum, you can't let your foot off the gas. You got to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is definitely a momentum game. And the more momentum you have, the more deals seem to find you. So that said, what advice would you give an aspiring investor that's 6 to 12 months behind you?
That's really a great question. And honestly, when you come into the space, whether you join a mentorship program or not, I mean, you're going to be learning so much. It's like drinking out of a fire hose. You're going to be underwriting deals and reaching out to brokers and trying to build a brand. And just realize that if you're trying to be the master of all those roles or the jack of all trades, you're probably not going to gain momentum in any of the roles. So I feel deep down inside that everyone has a hunch or maybe a gut feeling of maybe some advantage that they have or some skill set that they have from a previous job or some network that they had before they came into the space that may translate into at least one role on a multifamily team. So I say you have to really own that role and kind of just step up and make that your superpower. Even if you've never done it before, you market yourself as I'm the underwriting person, or I'm the capital raiser, or I'm going to be the deal finder and I'm going to hustle and make it happen. You market yourself, and whether you're trying to build your own team or you're trying to get on an existing team, you're going to be able to more clearly put the puzzle pieces together if you just market yourself as one role. And once you get the opportunity and you start adding value and start, learning more aspects of the business, your tool belt, you just get more tools in the tool belt and it makes you more valuable. And you try to add as much value as possible to your team because it will definitely come back to you tenfold eventually.
I love it. So focus on one area, make it your superpower, use that to get into the game and then broaden from there is correct in a nutshell. So I love it. Once again, textbook, you're basically taking everybody to school today. So that's awesome. I love it. So last question and more for people to get in touch with you. So how can listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, I mean, I love to chat real estate. So, I don't know if you're going to drop my contact info in the bio or anything, but feel free to.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever you want in the show notes is going to go in the show notes. So if you want your contact information in there, just say so and we'll drop it in.
Yeah, feel free to do that. I'm on all social media accounts, especially Facebook and LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me on there. I also have a website. It's under development, but I do have a landing page with a Calendly link and whatnot. So feel free to connect with me there. It's www.streamstackinvest.com. And I'd love to have a chat.
All right. Sounds good. So we'll put link to your contact information, LinkedIn profile, website, and all that's going to be in the show notes. So anybody listening, if you want to get in touch with Ryan, all you got to do is go down to the show notes, click or tap, and that magical internet thing will whisk you away to be able to talk to him. So that said, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Very much appreciate your time. And, you got a lot of great tips for people. And I think this is just absolutely pure gold.
Thanks for the opportunity, Brian. I appreciate it.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure to subscribe. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community yet, which we call a Tribe of Titans, you are missing out. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description to this episode, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.